at verse 23. Matthew chapter 19, verse 20. Don't you stand up, I will kill you. I will kill you if you stand up. Angela, so you can worship, it's welcome to give it to one of these young fellas and let them do it so you can get your praise on, because what they're going to try to do is put their head down and go to sleep in the first place.
Young people.
Young people.
I'm playing a game over here.
Look at Miss Stephanie in the back. Look, we got police in the front end.
Get out that game.
Young people.
Young people.
Don't all jump at once.
Don't all jump. Elijah, Anthony, one of y'all grab the phone for her. Unless you go worship. If you ain't worshiping, you can hold the phone. So we go begin reading at Matthew chapter 19, verse 23.
They got it.
We got it? Say what? Why your phone so loud? Then Jesus said to his disciples, I tell you the truth, it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, who then can be saved? Jesus looked at them and said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Peter answered him, we have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us? Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you will have followed me and will sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses, or brothers, or sisters, or father, or mother, or children, or fields for my sake will receive 100 times as much as and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire men to work in his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About the third hour, he went out and saw others just standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, you also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right. So they went. He went out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour and did the same thing. About the 11th hour, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, why have you been standing here all day and doing nothing? Because no one has hired us, they answered. He said to them, you also go and work in my vineyard. When evening came, and the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last hired, going on to the first. The workers who were hired about the 11th hour came and each received a denarius. So those who came were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landlord. These men who were hired last worked on an hour, they said, and you have made them equal to us, and have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them, friend, am I not being unfair to you? Didn't you agree to work for the denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the man who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my money? Are you envious because I am generous? Preach, man. So the last will be first, and the first will be last. You may be seated in the presence of God's word. I thought I needed to read in chapter 19 so you can get a full effect. Taking it from here. From verse 11, when they received it, they began to grumble against the landlord and told him, these brothers were hired last. You paid them the same amount as I. And by the time they get through his argument, he tells them the same thing he tells in chapter 19. The first, go be last, and the last, go be first. When he wants to tell the parable in chapter 20, he goes back and tells them again, the first, go be last, and the last, go be first. In one context, it says, many are called. Few of you over the church. This week has been a very blessed and beautiful week, but I also had a burden in my life. In the first week of our services, we talked about socialized at America. talked about things that they did with the Doctrine of Discovery when they came out and signed the Trail of Tears and signed right here in Franklin to bring the Indians out that killed millions of Indians. We even talked about how in Franklin itself, it was settled by American indigenous Indians and black Africans from the diaspora. We talked about what did the Doctrine of Discovery mean for people other than Anglo-Saxons. We even traversed back through the Magna Carta, and I taught you what it meant and how they wrote their charter. So we talked about what did it mean to be socially inept in America and how they make that money off. We talked about everybody want to be black except black people. It was Black History Month. I don't want to dashiki this one. I got up late, so I couldn't wear my new one because I couldn't iron it. And what happened is we have adopted a schizophrenic Jesus. Because you don't understand that you serve white supremacy through your Jesus. Last week we talked about one thing that Angela wanted to come up and make sure I talked about was called the Treaty of Tripoli. The Treaty of Tripoli was between 4 African nations and the United States of America. She called me after church on Sunday and said, I was doing more research of what's going on and found out that the first country who recognized America as an independent nation was the country of Morocco. Morocco is an African nation that was a part of this thing called the Bay of the Barbary Islands. I wish my kids would learn and read more. It was 4 countries: Morocco, Tripoli, Algiers, and Tunisia. These countries were the countries who had taken some American ships, Dominique, and held them hostage. So yes, some North African brothers on the Mediterranean Sea caught some Anglo-Saxon ships from America and held them as slaves, which then went into a treaty that they would set them free. I argued my case last week that last week your politics were broken because America told you they was built on Christian beliefs, and come to find out in the Bay and the treaty between them, they said they are not Christian, but they are a capitalist society. That should have sent you into a frenzy and made you go back and read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. You should have researched some stuff to figure out was your pastor telling the truth or was he full of it. It should not. What I tried to do in the first 2 weeks, Miss Stephanie, is make you put your Bible down for a season and make you pick up some extra reading and figure out what am I talking about. Because in order to understand what your Jesus is, you got to understand the landscape of what the people intended for him to be. He never meant for Jesus to be the one who would save you from slavery. Your Jesus that you believe in was the one who's supposed to keep you enslaved. They didn't come to America to settle the nation for everybody to be equal. They settled America to always have a system that will always have poor people. You have to know that there was something called indentured slavery before chattel slavery. They paid Africans to come over on their ships and do work. Because the Indians are sick and they always carry diseases, the black blood did not carry diseases, Miss Stephanie, so they thought that they could do something that the Dutch were already doing. So when America tells us in the Treaty of Tripoli that we are not built on Christian values, we built on a capitalist society, what does it mean to be built in capitalism? Well, all you have to do is watch your president this week sign a bill declaring an emergency at the border in Mexico. Now, Flint ain't had clean water in 2 years, and he just took $8 billion for a wall. $3.6 of the money he's taken from the Department of Defense and their construction budget, and he said he loved the military. $3.6 billion are coming from, they can't house veterans but they can take that money to build a wall. Statistics show that most of the drugs that enter America do not enter by illegally. 80% of the drugs that enter into America enter through point of entry. That means some police officers and dogs that sniff around the truck. Most illegals that come into America are not coming with drugs. They're seeking asylum. This fool went out and found 13 white women with pictures of kids who had been killed by illegal immigrants, traversed them through the Rose Garden at the White House, and built his platform as the most white supremacist president I've ever seen in my life. And guess what? He is the most ignorant person I ever met in my life. That's so much so, Miss Stephanie, as I'm watching the news conference, he's telling people you can talk. The brother stands up to talk. He ain't a brother. He's really an Anglo-Saxon. And I almost got happy because I love to see Anglo-Saxons at it with one another because they make black on black crime the worst thing that's going on in America. But it's good to see a mob boss talk to his henchmen the way, and when he talks to, he said, ABC, you can talk. The boy from, I like you a little bit more than NBC, not a lot, but I like you a little bit better. Now, he's the president of these ununited states, and the freedom of the press is fake news. That he tells two reporters, I hate you and I hate you, but I like you a little bit more. White supremacy. When Jim Acosta, the one that he took his presidential pass from a couple months ago, stands up to talk, he said, I even like you even less because y'all are fake news. Actually, my problem is not about the politician. My problem is that 81% of the church support that fool. My problem is not that politicians are dirty, nasty, no good. My problem is that the church has put their name behind somebody and it is white supremacy. When a brother say he Christian and say, I want to read from 1 Corinthians, we got a problem. He don't understand it's a first and a second. It's right there in your face, bro. It is sad that a white fool who paid his way through America and a brother who was the first African American to lead the Harvard Law Review, it's a shame that America will hold him up and tear the brother down. You better be careful with that. Because only thing a MAGA hat is the new hat for the Ku Klux Klan. That's all it is. So, I love Robert Mueller. They don't never have to find nothing for me. But what I like even more, Miss Stephanie, is that when God begins to uncover the church, it's always wrapped up in some political policies. The politics of Herod last week we talked about. When the Pharisees came to tell Jesus, hey, Jesus, you need to get out of town because Herod wanted to kill you. Jesus said, you go tell that father. Since you bringing messages, let me send Lorraine, since you got some messages, send your people back this message. Tell them I said, call me. You thought I was going to say something crazy. Because I don't do the middleman. If you got something to say to me, my number on that call. But what church folks do is they don't call the person and talk to them. What church people do is they go behind your back and talk to other folks. And really what you don't know, that don't matter to me. Because you know you better not come to me with that foolishness. Because when I tell you about you and some of the people who mad ain't doing what God called them to do in the first place. How you can't tell me what to say when you ain't doing. Before you try to take the speck out of my eye, how about you take the board out of yours? and quit following white supremacy theology. Y'all president declared a national emergency, then he went on vacation. Wait a minute. That boy good. That boy good. Listen. The blackest president we ever had in America, he in the White House right now. They said that a black president is going to break America. Right now, in 40 years, we're going in more debt than we ever been in. 40 years. Amazon ain't paid no taxes in 2 years. The average tax return was $1,000 more last year, and the tax cut's supposed to go to the middle class. This man just took $3.6 billion from the military. Well, we got homeless veterans who can't get medicine. We got veterans who can't find a place to stay. We got veterans, and this man took the money for a wall. And we run around here, running through churches, talking about what black, and the man just took the money from us. Let me help you out. Colin Kaepernick just settled with the National Football League. Now, I got the reverse because I seen this Monique and Steve Harvey interview on the internet. And in the interview, you could tell a slave and you could tell a free person. Now, I'm not going to tell you who the slave and who the free person, but in the interview, Monique called Steve Harvey out because you didn't support me like you're supposed to. You didn't have to go in your show and say what you said when you said it. Steve Harvey says, Monique, you don't understand. If you poor, everybody can't be poor with you. Monique said, that's not my point. I get that. What I get was, does money always outweigh the truth? Preach, boy. Monique calls his foot to the plantation right quick. Because Monique says, I'd rather be out in the plantation than be in the house working for master. And what happened was, it was the greatest move of God I've seen this year. Not my preaching, not anybody else's, not even the full story. Steve Harvey says, in order to make money in Hollywood, you got to play the game that they want you to play. A day later, Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed got $40 million from the NFL. And guess what they charged the National Football League with? Collusion. They charged the NFL that y'all colluded together and blackballed me not to get a job. A great meme comes up on Facebook with Steve Harvey and them stupid faces, and it looks what Steve Harvey feel like to see that Colin Kaepernick did not sell out and still got the bag.
Yeah. That's right.
Because when you're in the economy of Jesus, Jesus deals with justice. And when you fight for justice, Jesus always wins. It's that mishpat, the restoration and the equality of God's stuff. And what we deal with every day is foolishness. There are women who are going the opposite way because a man has broken them. There are men going the opposite ways because a woman has broken them. But we so caught up on what people saying out their mouth, not the impact that they have in the community. But in your churches, what we doing? You won't stand up and talk about Trayvon Martin. You won't stand up. Talk about a young brother got shot down in Alabama. They say the police had the right to do it. You have been fed that black people do more drugs than white folks, and I'm telling you that's a lie.
Yeah.
First off, there's a problem in the economy. If we have always been the minority, then the majority's always had the money. We couldn't afford to buy drugs the way they can. It ain't our kids in juvenile. It's their kids in juvenile. But there's a disparity in the time that they give to your kid versus their kid. especially when all the judges white. So I watch y'all president talk about it and then go on vacation. Now, I don't do political fanship. That's not what I do. I'm not that smart. I'm not Democrat, Republican. I'm not independent. I'm Jesus. So when my white friends come to me and say, I voted for Trump because Hillary was worse, I laugh. No, what you're saying was you voted for white supremacy. You voted to keep a poor system of caste. You voted against civil rights. You voted against women, especially women of color. And you voted to make sure you, the wealthy, paid less taxes than everybody in America.
Amen.
I don't hear Hillary was a demon because of her emails. What I hear, I'd rather uphold the systems of white supremacy than have a woman in there or another Negro. Now, this sister in Congress makes a comment about Israel, and now she anti-Semitic. This fool in the White House called people Pocahontas, and he does not. And the girl came out and apologized, and he never did. That's what white supremacy does. White supremacy makes you apologize for stuff that they do every day. We'll get it. We'll get this life together. And our kids, because they can't stay awake unless they play a video game or they with their friends, they gonna be entrapped in the system of white supremacy that's getting worse and worse. Because what we've done to them is treated them like big babies their whole life. We ain't gave them, at my house, there was a thing called this. If you're not eating what I'm cooking, guess what?
You don't eat.
We don't do that no more. I know parents around here got 4 children to cook a meal for each one of them.
I wish I would. All right.
I know they here. If you grown and you can do all this what you want to do, there's a place where grown people need to do it. Guess what? It's not in my house. If you live in my house and you live outside of the rules, I got a right to put hands on you no matter how old you is. And the reason why some of us got great lives is because we were raised with some great rules. And now we got jokers who go to school for nothing. Straight F's, don't know what be going on, can't sit in the sanctuary and listen to a sermon because and you know if they can't listen to a sermon, they definitely ain't listen to their teachers in school. They barely graduating. They don't know they don't know nothing about African American history. All they little white friends got them bamboozled. I know they say nigga. And they ain't got no problem with it. Because you ain't taught them how to have a problem with it. Because all we taught our children how to do lately is play video games and play. We ain't gave them nothing real. Nothing. But how to bounce a ball and catch a football. Kids with straight F's become the homecoming king and you got it on Facebook. No! That baby need to learn something. Baby going to jail. Because there's a such thing as the school to prison pipeline that you don't even know nothing about. That there are 3rd grade tests that they give your child to tell if your child go be successful or they going to jail. And believe me, when your baby don't read, do math, and want to learn history, guess what they got for him? They got a jail cell for him. You need to come walk with your pastor in mass incarceration in the school to prison pipeline. They take a test in the 3rd grade to determine how many jail cells and prisons they need to be. Tennessee is one of them. For your child who's not doing nothing in society, guess what they got for your child? They got a project and a jail cell for them. Because those who don't go to jail, Angela, they're going to throw them over there in Reddick's. They're going to throw them on Natchez. And what they do, the system then owns you when you got a project. Because now you can't smoke a cigarette in the project. Now, if they can come in and do inspections anytime they want to in the project. So the project is there for them to control you. That's white supremacy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You give me straight no chaser this morning. Shame on you go to school every day and can't get your lesson. But you got Jordans on. Shame on you who don't know what to do with your life because you think it's good. If your friends in college, why you not in college? If you're an athlete, why you can't go do what you're supposed to do? It ain't all about the child, sometimes about the parent. The system, there you go. Because during Reconstruction, there was something written called the New Deal. And I'm just going to give you a phase of it, of how the system still works in your life today. In the New Deal, they decided to give low-income housing to African Americans. But here's the rule of the New Deal, Angela. If a woman had a husband, he couldn't stay there. Boy, you want to talk about the breakdown of the American family? They never cared about you and your family. Well, and while you run around talking about what I'm saying in the pulpit, and while they run around talking about homosexuality and abortion, did they say something to the Southern Baptists who found out they had raped 20,000 children? If we run around here talking about children church, we send our children to the predators. Woo! I know. Because your life with Jesus is so broke down, how can a man have enough gall to spend that much time with my child where he can touch my child? You ain't said nothing about that. The Pope just came out and said that he believed millions of children were harmed by the Catholic Church. But y'all run around here talking about R. Kelly. That's the only, R. Kelly not the only predator. There's some predators in the pulpit that I can tell you about. And they said in the New Deal that if you were married, your husband, and they would inspect your project to make sure, and if they seen any clothing that looked like a man, they go put you out. Franklin has done it too. They bought a brother from Mississippi, sent him down here, and the laws that he's written inside the projects are just totally unacceptable. And when they get put out, they call him Pastor Kevin. Who reads the Franklin homepage? I know I'm getting some information. There was a study done by a brother from Vanderbilt. I don't tell you everything. In there, he puts up on the screen, pull out your cell phone, connect to this, and then I want you to talk about Franklin in one word. The most word that got the most was wealthy. That's what it was. But a couple words shocked some folks. It was racism, inequality, and Confederate City. Read it. It's in the Franklin homepage. I shared it to Facebook. I saved it to my phone because I was going to talk about economic lies in America. But when I read it, I say, wait a minute. Well, I wasn't able to go to this right here. Me and Pastor Kevin would have loved this. Before they talked about the fuller story at the Bowman meeting. They talked about some folks out of Nashville came in to talk about housing markets. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And did y'all notice what they said about Franklin? Franklin is going to be in trouble because they pushing all the what? Low-income poor people out of here. And they found out in the study out of Nashville that doctors can stay here, but police officers, firemen, school teachers cannot afford to stay in Franklin. And because of that, the commute to work here in Franklin is causing a bottleneck even in Nashville. But that's what Franklin want to do. They don't want us here anyway. And the young sister, when the mayor Ken Moore tried to push back, the young sister said, just to put it plain, y'all need to fix y'all system here in Franklin. That was plain what she said. Because it's broken. Y'all ain't got jobs that can hold people here. That's why they drive out. Because ain't no money in jobs no more. They say the average person who needs to stay here has a post-secondary degree. That's a master's or above. The average income in Franklin, they say, is $155,000. Where? Not the folks that I know. You a lying dog. You didn't poll my people. You didn't poll them at Franklin, over there at Franklin Community Church. You need to come. They need to come out of church of the city and really talk to churches with boots on the ground. You just can't go over there to Fellowship Bible Church and do that right there because we still in here. We holding court. So you say, Pastor Walter, what this got to do? Here's the situation Jesus was dealing with. Jesus in chapter 19, Miss Stephanie, wanted to be, the Pharisees always wanted to stomp Jesus. But let me give you some background and context of Matthew. Matthew is the gospel to the Jews. Is the gospel to the Jews. That's all you got to remember. If you don't hear nothing else, Matthew is the gospel to the Jews. It ain't for y'all. It ain't for Gentiles. It ain't for Greeks. It is for the Jews. This is their gospel to their people. That's what it is. That's why in Matthew chapter 1, you get the what? Genealogy of Jesus. They don't start off and say, talk about Mary and Joseph and Elizabeth. They want to show you that Jesus is the what? The Messiah. That's all Matthew is there for. Forget everything you heard. Jesus is the Messiah. That we got that right down. But here's the problem. In the genealogy, the writer of Matthew does something that blows my mind. Something that they don't really do, Miss Stephanie. And guess what Matthew did, Angela? They put some women in his genealogy. And normally genealogies are not done by women. It's the first time in the Bible that women have ended up in anybody's genealogy. And when he put the women in, it's the women of Jesus. Wait a minute, y'all, women should have shouted on that one. Because y'all were property, and because they put your name in there, you ought to got happy, because even though when men try to hold you out, God will write your name in. And what happens is, not only do they write the name in, it's kind of crazy the women that's in there. There's a sister by the name of Tamar. Tamar tricked her father-in-law into getting her pregnant because she had killed 2 of his sons. Wait a minute. Tamar tricked her dad-in-law into get her pregnant because he liked to drink and sleep with prostitutes. So she put herself together like a prostitute, went in and got pregnant by him. That's Tamar. Y'all got her? Everybody should know this sister by the name of Rahab, who's the prostitute on the wall of Jericho. You need to know Rahab. She's important. You need to know a sister by the name of Ruth. Ruth married Boaz, but not before she laid in the bed with him and tried to give him some of that cookie nookie. And that's who was in there. There's another sister by the name of Bathsheba. They don't even name her. They call her Uriah's wife. Now stop. It's such a problem in the text, Angela, that they put the women's name in there, and when they got to Bathsheba, she wasn't named. They called her Uriah's wife. She in the genealogy of Jesus. You know Bathsheba, the one David looked at, took her, they lost the first baby, and then they had Solomon. And last but not least, Mary. Mary, Jesus' mother, is in the genealogy of Jesus. Now, when Matthew writes this thing, Rico, I got a problem Not really. I need to understand from Matthew. So I had to ask Matthew a question. Yo, Matt, let me holler at you, player. When you pick some women, you didn't pick Deborah, one of the judges out of judges. When you pick some women, you didn't pick Naomi. Why all the women that you picked had some sexual stuff dealing with a preach, boy? And what we've done is we've misunderstood that God don't care about what you've done between your legs. God cares about what you're going to do with your heart.
Yeah.
So when Matthew writes the genealogy, he might have had some dudes in there who were in the lineage, but he made sure there were 5 women who had some scandalous background, and I put them in there. Matthew jumps on the track like Jay-Z. Nobody in the corner got swagger like us. And when he jumps on there and says, from my lineage, we started off number 1 with Adam. He didn't name Eve, but he got 5 women who had some issues sexually. I want to encourage you women today about God giving you the power even though you may be promiscuous. Because Tamar got her blessing. Rahab was saved when they tore the wall down. Ruth got a husband for being faithful to her mother-in-law. Bathsheba, who was married to an army general, ended up having a king. And Mary, you know who about her? Joseph wasn't her husband. She was betrothed to be married to him. And before we go any further, for any other preacher who doesn't know the character and context of Matthew, when you go preach that bull, you preach to people every week. That these 5 women had some issues. So by the time Jesus has done some stuff in Matthew, the Pharisees is on his back. And in chapter 19, they were arguing with Jesus about the law. And the law of Moses, to be in particular, because the Pharisees, Miss Stephanie, were the keepers of the law. And they told Jesus, yo, JC, what you got to say about this divorce? Jesus jumps on the track and says, God in the beginning created marriage for 1 man and 1 woman. Therefore, they would not be 2, they would be 1 flesh. So whatever the woman does to the man, they do it to one another. And they said, well, Moses, so if you're so smart, Jesus, because they wanted to always stop and read in chapter 19, they wasn't there to get along with Jesus. They said, yo, so if that was the case, why Moses got him a right to get divorced? He says this right here, and it's plain and sure. He said, because you Negroes don't know how to be married. So God, because of his infinite wisdom, has always had to create stuff to allow y'all to be ignorant. That wasn't his perfect plan, but because your heart is wicked, God had to give you a right to get back to him. The Bible says that they pulled back a little bit, and this young rich dude comes up, little rich guy. And he comes up, and he says, how can I be saved? Jesus said, you need to do a couple things. You need to obey the law. He said, I do all that. He said, I keep the commandments. I remember the Sabbath. I even go out. And Jesus said, okay, you do all that. You want eternal life? You really want to know? Give away all your riches to the poor. Young homeboy said, what? I can't be doing all that. Jesus does not even talk to him anymore. He flips to the disciples. He said, yo, check this out. You see him? That's why it's going to be harder for a rich person to get into the kingdom than a camel going through the eye of a needle. Listen, that ain't got nothing to do with that stupidity that they taught you in Sunday school. What Jesus is really saying is rich people got a problem because they don't like to help poor people. Yeah. So we're dealing with the economy of Jesus right now. And he goes around and flip back. And Peter, my homeboy, who I model my ministry after, says, hey, check this out. Jesus, I gave up everything to follow you. And he said, look, in order for you to follow me, you got to give up brother, sister, whatever. Y'all be sitting on the 12 tribes, judging the world, whatever. Even Judas, because he was one. And he gets down to chapter 20. And he tells Peter in the end of chapter 19 what? Because in order to be first, you got to be last. In order for the last, you go be, listen, he has now flipped the script and the Pharisees are listening. They standing there because they can't leave. Because when Jesus started cussing folks out and telling them off, he always have them what? Amazed. That's what he said. I read it in here. It said that when he was talking, not only the Pharisees, not only the disciples, but there's another group that you're going to hear about later called the multitude. There were 3 separate groups of people following Jesus that you need to know about. The Pharisees and the people of the law. You didn't learn about the disciples, and you learn about this multitude. So now Jesus got an audience, and he decides to start rapping. No, what I say, he's rapping. Because now he begins to tell them what we call a parable. And it's a story. He says, in the kingdom, he establishes the economy of Jesus through a parable. This is the economy of God. This is how God's economy should work. He says this. A certain ruler goes out and hires some folks at the first hour. Tell them to go to work in my vineyard. He then searches around and sees that some other cats are hiring out, just idly hanging out, drinking beer, smoking weed. He said, come on, go do some work, because you got to be able to support that habit. Then he finds some more cats who homeless, and everybody go to work. At the 12th hour, he goes to find the last group not doing nothing. He tells them, why y'all just not doing nothing, hanging out every day, being poor, and ain't got no job? So let me put you to work, and then you go to work in my vineyard. Now, here's the issue in America. Number one, they think you should come apply for their job. They don't go out and try to find people to go to work. That's the first issue. Y'all missed that one. Because it did not say that the people reported to him. They said that he went out looking for workers. Read it. Read it. And when he went out looking for the workers, he did not go look for his friends. People who look like him. Do y'all understand that when you stand around idly, you ain't doing nothing? He said, since you ain't doing nothing, come go to work. That ain't the issue. The issue then becomes, once everybody work, it's time to get paid. Now, everybody go get a denarius. That's what we agreed to. You get paid a denarius. Right? But here comes the problem. Here's the economy of America, the capitalistic society. Since I've been here longer, I should get more. Read it. It says that when he went to go pay, not only did they start working last, when he decided to pay folk, he called the ones who he hired last to get paid first. I'm going to let that marinate for a minute. You missed your shot right there. You missed your shot. You just missed what God is doing in your life right now. You did less work looking for work, and when he decided to give out the blessing, even though you did less work, he decided to pay you first. Y'all have missed it again. You ain't did what you supposed to do at the time you supposed to do it, how you supposed to do it, when you supposed to do it, but because he made you a promise, he still paid you.
Yes.
You might be cussing in your sermon, but he still paid you.
Yes, sir.
And just like any capitalist society, guess what happened? The people who work longer got an attitude. Say, yo, check this out. Because in their heart, they have decided, since he paid them a denarius and they only worked an hour, I know I'm going to get more than that. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go now. This is when it get good and good here. Because they don't like this kind of teaching. Especially in these big mega churches. And they like to do stuff that's crazy. Right? So here we go. Now, here is America's problem. White people started off on third base and will tell you they hit a triple. Right? When black folk couldn't even hold it back and go up the back.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So when God started reversing stuff, their main fight in life is to make sure you niggas don't get farther than them. And so on your job, they'll hire somebody to run you off. And won't pay you what you're supposed to get. I'm going to give you a prime example. Y'all, I have not been a pastor my whole life. I come from the corporate sector. I am, and you might laugh, but I was a corporate fast food manager for 20 years almost. And I was good. I could run a restaurant with no problem. Miss Stephanie, when I get hired on a job, I tell them, send me to the worst restaurants. Why? In my mind, there was bonuses that would go to be made quarterly. So if a restaurant was already in the red and I take my gift in there and do what I'm supposed to do, by the time I get into the yellow, I've already made money. And God knows if I get in the green, it's going to be over. But whenever you look at a job description, I'm going to help you young people out, there's a certain amount of money that you can make for that position. Certain amount of money. So if you want to be assistant manager, they normally give you a range of $30,000 to $38,000 a year. If you're going to be a general manager, they'll charge about $42,000 to $60,000 a year. I ain't taking either one of them. I went in, when you talk to Walter Simmons, you got to pay me $70 grand a year. And in one interview they asked, why should we pay? Because ain't nobody gifted like me to do what I can do for you. I know the history of your company. I know why your company failed. And I'm going to tell you, number one, you cannot pay people a minimum wage and expect them to do maximum work. Yeah. Here are my goals. When I go in an interview, when you sit at the table and talk to me, I tell you, minimum wage does not get maximum productivity. Right. So if you're going to hire me, you're going to have to allow me to pay people what they deserve. Preach, boy. That's my number one thing. Number two, your systems don't work. That's why I'm standing here, because your turnover is so high, because you can't keep good workers, because you don't pay them enough. If you look at the leaders at this time, it was Wendy's, Arby's, and Chick-fil-A. If you go down and see their system, there is always somebody there to run their restaurant. Number three, I'm bringing my gift, so you got to pay me for it, period. Miss Stephanie, I've had to turn down jobs of $60,000 to $70,000 with the same thing right here. Now, I was a fool. And I do. So I moved from Georgia to Tennessee. And Rico, what they'll do actually is try to figure out who this new good-looking young man is. Yes, I was a player. And when I come in, they wearing their uniform, Miss Stephanie, I walk in with a necktie on and some dress shoes. That's how I come to meetings. I'm always buttoned tight. If the restaurant open up at 8, I'm there at 7. If I'm supposed to get off at 5, I leave at 10. Because I believe that what you put in the front end, you'll get blessed on the back end. And because in any job that you do and anything you do, you got to work harder than them because your job is on the line every day. So my Uncle Randy would ask, boy, you get up early and you up late because, Uncle Randy, I'm on the grind. They gave me one restaurant first, Lorraine. I took my principals in and I introduced them to something called a cleaning captain. This brother, one job was to do nothing but cleaning. Now, when I go in a restaurant, my first day in there, I walk in, I don't make a taco, a burrito, a Mexican pizza. I go in the cooler. I pulled all the trash out. I swept it and mopped it out. I went in the bathroom. I cleaned the bathroom. I went out and scrubbed garbage cans. I went out and scrubbed stuff in the store and made it shine and clean. When I got through cleaning, Rico, for the 12 hours that day, the next day I went in, I had my necktie on. The first day I went in, I had on their uniform because I know what I'm about to do. The next day I go in, I got my necktie on, Taco Bell emblem. I got my pants tied up, they dressed, and I got my shoes on. They ain't even none slip. And I pulled the team together and I said, listen, What you saw me do yesterday, I ain't doing no more. I have cleaned this restaurant top to bottom. I prove to you who I am. Now it's time for you to do it. Because I'm going to come in there and do what y'all ain't did. And when my bosses walk in, I got a brother out there scrubbing in the drive-thru. Ain't no bubble gum on my sidewalks. I say I need to hire somebody to come plant some flowers out here. Because this is my business, and I need to run it the way I need to. And what happens is, anytime God sends a gift, there's always going to be some haters. Some haters who have been with Taco Bell for years get an attitude and write the vice president in Louisville, Kentucky. Preach, boy. And we're going to a meeting, Miss Stephanie, where 7 or 8 restaurants going to meet with my district manager. These heifers stop coming. They stopped coming, Angela, because I'm making more money than them. And they thought it was unfair that I was making money in a red restaurant. Not only that, I started getting emails from folks saying, who authorized you to get raises? I sent them an email back and said, nobody. Can't nobody come to work over here for no $8 an hour? I don't pay slave wages. I didn't even know I was just as approached before I ever became a pastor. And I don't believe in paying people pennies to get what I need to be able to pay folks $12 and $13 and $14 and $15 an hour, because I'm going to work the HELL hockey sticks out of you to get every little thing that I can get out of you. You're going to earn that check. The first month, we go from a negative business, and there's something called a profit and loss statement that you do every month, Miss Stephanie, and it show you food, labor costs, and repairs and maintenance, and they break it all down. And once how much money you made in your restaurant, subtracted all that, either you in the green or you in the red. My first month in a red restaurant, we went from red to green, didn't even pass by yellow, because when you gifted, you never have to go slow. You missed that one. You missed that one right there, Rico. Because when God has touched you, and when you do people the right way, you don't have to go to yellow. Everything but red means stop, yellow means slow, green means go. And what they did not understand, that I was gifted to come in and love people. So the second month, not only do I go green, but I put $2,500 on the P&L, meaning the company made $25. Now it don't seem like this business was losing $5,000 a month before I got there. By the third month, we were making $8,000 to $10,000. Now people are hating. They said he up there kissing Chris Terry behind. That's how he getting what he's getting. No, boo-boo. No. While you in there paying people slave wages, when I come in and give you a raise, even though you don't deserve it, you got to figure out who is Walter Simmons. Not only I do that, but on every Friday when we have done what we're supposed to do, the boss will take money out of his pocket and buy everybody lunch. Because I understand when you bless people, God will bless you. And so Miss Stephanie, I introduced the cleaning captain. Then I bought something in called the bench clean. Meaning that your restaurant is staffed at always 120%. You don't staff a restaurant to 100. You staff a restaurant to 120, meaning you have part-time people on the bench when somebody gets work or gets sick or cannot come to work. You always got somebody on the call. And when you come in to get a job with me and your child's in high school, your parent got to come in and holler at me, because never will you call me saying he's supposed to be at work and he really with his girlfriend. So now when you get that, Aunt, I go in a meeting, it's just me, 2 other white folks. The black folks ain't coming because they mad. So the vice president drives from Louisville, Kentucky, where the head of Young Foods is, drive down and have a meeting. And he goes up to his PowerPoint on the screen. And he shows these women these red restaurants. And when he showed them the red, he said, well, the reason why we pay Walter what he pay him is because he took a red restaurant that you done had 12 years and turned it into a green restaurant in 3 months. And instead of being mad and complaining, putting your resume out, how about you go to Walter and ask him what he's doing so you can be a better manager?
Yeah.
And the problem with the church and the problem with people like you is that you think everybody go celebrate your blessing. They go to Jesus and say, yo, how can you hire them for 1 hour? Not only did you pay them what I paid, but you paid them before me. Woo, 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 woo. You paid them before me, and they got what I got after working less time. Listen, God is about to do something great. God is going to take from the wealthy and give to you, and you ain't even deserve it. But there's some stuff you got to do. You first got to go to work. And I ain't talking about the job you work. The field that you're working is right here. And the field is called Empowerment Community Church. And when you go out and you start doing the evangelism of Empowerment Community Church, then God will show you what he's going to do in your life. And so now, they mad, Miss Stephanie, and they want Jesus to fix it. And I love the parable. Jesus say, yo, this is my stuff. Listen, y'all miss. We miss what God is really saying in the Bible because we don't read it. And when we read it, we take our blackness out of it. See, a Muslim brother, go read it like it is in the Quran. Right? Jesus tells this parable that the people that were working had an attitude. And Jesus says in the parable, ain't I got the right to do what I want to do? What's mine?
Yeah.
That's my mama. That's how mamas do right there.
Yeah.
If that ain't a black woman right there, that's a black woman. I know Jesus put his hands on his hip and say, what? Can I do what I want? And then Jesus shows his humanity by telling this parable, Angela. Even though he checked him, he didn't call him funny. Y'all know that. Jesus is something amazing that even when we out acting foolish, complaining about stuff that we don't control, he still called us what? But this ain't the first time. If you traverse through Exodus and Numbers, when the people were praying, God answered their prayers and they got ready to kill Moses. And what they would do is start grumbling because now God was, listen, here's church folk. You want water, God give it to you out of a rock. Miss Stephanie, you say you hungry and God send quail and manna for heaven. But in good Christian fashion, we start complaining about the stuff God gave you. Good Christian fashion, we can always find issue with what God has done in our life. I want a wife. She ain't built like Beyonce, so you don't want her. I want a husband. He ain't got no car, but he served God. I want a new job, but God, I want to serve you more. So then he tell you to leave that job. God, I want to spend more time with my family. Then he tell you can't be in the club every weekend. God always adds a layer to your life. And the economy of Jesus does not matter where you came from, how you got there, and how long you've been there. If it's right, it's right. Now, you need to deal with this issue too. Some of y'all made some deal with Jesus that you need to figure out. Because what he told him, hey, whoa. Ain't this my stuff? Did not you make your deal yourself? Most of us don't get raised on our job because we never asked for one.
Wow.
Don't get mad with me because I'm going to go in and ask for the grip. You can't hire me and say that the range is between 40 and 50. When you get there, I'm asking for 75. Because I know one thing they ain't going to do, Rico. They ain't giving me 40.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ask for 75, they next offer got to be in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we haven't been taught that
Mm-hmm.
because our people did not teach us that.
Yeah.
So we don't know how to go get the stuff we need to be able to go get the job that God wants us to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you think because they say $15 an hour, they'll no. If you gifted, if you could go in and do a great interview, they will pay you what you ask for.
Yeah.
But most of us don't go in there with God. We go in there on our own responsibility. You know what?
Mm.
I don't like this. And this is, I'm almost done. My voice about to go in. I need to call my niece Sugar Mama. My wife at home sick. I ain't never seen nothing like this in my life. Okay. I call myself to have a relationship with God, Miss Stephanie. But every day, God do something more ignorant in my life that I can't do. Like moving in the house that we moved in, we ain't got no business there. It wasn't because of Walter Simmons, it's because of God. And then God said, if you're obedient to the stuff I tell you to do, I'm going to bless you. Now, hold on now. Now, I have a vision of one person that's here now. In the vision, we're doing something together. And when we do it, I don't know what God said. So my number one purpose as a pastor was not to pastor y'all. My number one purpose was to go get the person God told me to go get. Y'all stay with me now. Stay with me. Because I'm in God. I'm in God minefield. I'm working in Empowerment Community Church. And God said, your number one goal is to go get this person who I showed you in the vision that you were together when you got the house. I don't want you. I ain't calling no names. Quit trying to look at folk. Don't be looking around. When I called them on the phone and told them I need to see them, they rejected me at least 13 times. So, because I'm not that smart, Miss Stephanie, God said, call about a vision board party. And I called about a vision board party. She finally showed up to the community center, and then she showed up, and then I began to hit across the face. Now, my friend who I love, who God showed the vision to, I got to work that, because God, sometimes we have to learn how to work the stuff that God gave to us. And we just can't, because you just can't plant a flower and it grow tomorrow. That's the problem. We always want instant results, but sometimes the results are about you planting, watering, tilling, and pruning that ground, and that's what we don't do in churches. So now it comes down to a hard time, and now it's time to get her involved. And she tells me, I will come, but I'm not going to commit. All right. Now I got her though, because at least she go come.
Yeah.
Huh? So since I wasn't her pastor, I called on the phone one day and said, it's time for you to leave that job. I wasn't her pastor. So I could talk to her crazy. It didn't matter. She ain't pay no tithes and offering over here. So I might as well call and slap up out of it. And before I knew it, she had left the job. And I didn't know. It was just to tell me, hey, she left the job. Like, she left food in, called in no counselor. It was like a week. She was sitting in the job, and her boss, who had been taking advantage of her for years, called her in the office when she was going to leave and told her, I know I ain't did you right, and we going to miss you. You wish that should have sent you to a shop right there. Because sometimes you leaving is what people need to recognize ain't nobody here to do what I do.
Yeah.
Now, we get out there to Ladybug's birthday at La Hacienda. And some folks are sitting at the table, and I'm eating some salsa chips with some water. And Miss Stephanie, this woman said something so crazy, I almost slapped her out of her seat. She said, yeah, my pastor, what? You ain't joined the church. You ain't took a church covenant. You ain't said a word. You done left your job. You done did everything that I asked you to do, and I ain't now your pastor. I said, okay, what we got? Lorraine, Ashley, I need y'all to show up over here in this meeting with these folks. She sits in a meeting, and then she started talking funky to folks. And the folks, she talk so funky to them, Lorraine laughing, and I'm like, oh my Lord, she can kill every dollar before she don't get out of the church with what she just,
Ashley, the checks that was written, Angela messed our money up. Because Angela went in and told them that problem is white folks like to hold on to that stuff and y'all ain't giving it to the right place. I was like, oh Lord. And I was like, and Tim Richards walked out smiling, and I still didn't know what was going on. And next thing you know, Scott Rowley turns around and tells her, can you find him a house? Now wait. You can't tell me God ain't real. I told her from the get-go that God showed me and you and my wife in a car going to look for houses, and we were pointing houses we wanted to buy. We were living in Fairview, and Jessica had just said she's sick of living there. Now, we get to the meeting, they tell Angela to go find a house. Before I could get home at the meeting and crying in my car, Angela was already sending me houses. I didn't call your name out, I'm sorry. I didn't call her name out. We talked, and I told her, you are going to sell a house in 30 days. Hey, next thing you know, Labor Day, Memorial, whatever holiday it May, that Saturday, me, Angela, Jessica, and Elijah in my car picked up from her house and was riding around doing what? Looking at houses. Now, we ain't got no money. Ooh, I'm about to shout. We ain't got no money. We don't know what's going on. And she don't give us the paper. She say, I'm going to take you over here and fill stone forms first. We get in the house. There's a man in there working in the house. Angela goes in through the garage and talking to the man. Elijah and I, because we are in pimp mode, already know we don't need to see nothing else. We already know how much it is and what we go do. We don't need to see nothing else. But my wife, she don't like the price. My wife is cheap. My wife, and we went and looked for 3 to 5, but we only went in 2. The second house we went to was over in over there by the base Gilmore Park. And we went in this house, and they had a skirt at the bottom of the car, the bottom of the cabinet saying that you had to open up like it's the window. And Jessica, it had a big old backyard sale. And boy, me and Elijah walked out down that deck, and we looked at that backyard, and me and Elijah said, we don't need to see this no more. We walked in. We sat for 35 minutes in an area, Miss Stephanie, trying to find other houses to look at. Everywhere she called, nobody answered their phone. We ain't got no money. We out there on the wing and the prayer. We ain't got a quarter in our pocket. We went to Chili's. We dropped her back off. I'm sitting there with a smile on my face, not because I knew we finna get a house, because God had answered what he showed me. You missed that. And it wasn't about me and my wife. It was about God speaking in her life, because God had put her in a position that he wants her to go in. She left her job. She ain't got no money. She trying to work these couple jobs. She doing her thing, and she got 2 kids. And now one kid didn't know he going back to college. She working this other stuff, so God need to build her faith. Here's what the craziest thing was. We needed money to move in, Miss Stephanie, and guess what? We ain't have 25 cents. Next thing you know, I get an email from her. It's not an application for a credit. It's the doggone lease. I'm at Cracker Barrel, and I pick my phone up and say, hey, do you know what this is? She said, I didn't ask a question. She said, I sent you what she sent me. And so you and Jessica need to fill it out. Because I got to make sure, because I'm not looking for, I'm looking for affirmation, not advice. I go to my pastor. And my pastor tell me, hey, when God is moving, he don't move slow. Sometimes he moves. There go that green. We going from red to green, and we going quick. But the hand that blessed it was not Walter Simmons. I'm going to show you how God works in his kingdom. This is the economy of God. The person who needed their hand on it was Angel. I wasn't the blessing in this situation. The person who God was going to use to bless it was her. So God said, tell her in 30 days she go sell one. I told her in 30 days she go sell one. We moved in June 15, 2018. On the same day we moved in, the lady who we rented for Angela handed you a check. Am I lying?
Mm-hmm.
The same day she sold the house. Not only did she sell a house, she bought her kids to help us unload the truck to get the U-Haul back. Not only did she do that, she came over and visited with us. I still need to change the garage code because I don't like you having all my business. And what I'm trying to get you to understand about the economy of God, sometimes it's the people God placed in your life that's going to be the blessing and not your black self.
Mm-hmm.
And because of her obedience, she's selling houses out. Listen, if people get approved for houses through her, then I know I ain't supposed to get no house. She know I ain't lying. One person, Jessica, said to her, that girl ain't got no business with no house. She just got a job. And because God has touched her hand,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
it ain't about everybody you know. It ain't about your credit score all the time. It ain't about what the money you make.
That's
Sometimes it's about the person who got it in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
That's the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And that's what God is trying to get them to say. If you worry about something, you just earn your pay. Don't worry about what I'm giving everybody else. And so, when he gets down and deals with their grumbling, he flips around and tells them, friend, am I being unfair to you? This is what you agreed to. You agreed when you join Empowerment Church, you're going to be here, pay tithes, and do what you're supposed to do every week. That wasn't what I told you to do. That's what you agreed to. You said, I'll go out and spread the gospel of the kingdom of God. And not only do that, I'll bring folks to church to come worship with me because my church is the church that God wants you at. I didn't make that agreement. You made that with God. And Jesus asked, don't I have the right to do what with my own money? Are you envious because I'm generous? Watch yourself. That's a word for the church right there.
Whoa.
Are you envious because I'm generous? Are you really mad? Have you missed everything in the sermon just to get down to the words that I say that you may disagree with? You mean to tell me that there are homeless, hungry people, and all the church want to talk about homosexuality, abortion, and a god doggone wall? I clean that up so nobody send y'all my message this week. But we don't want to deal with the homeless. I got happy yesterday. Guess what the city of Franklin, y'all don't read enough. Do y'all know that at St. Paul Episcopal Church, and later on by the 25th of February, there is going to be a meeting with the city of Franklin to get a homeless facility for people who don't have nowhere to stay in the city of Franklin. And the person who's leading the charge is Dr. Kevin Reed.
All right. Good. Praise God. Good.
Because when you step on one king head like Herod, God then let you get Pilate in order. When you get Pilate in order, then you can get Caesar together. When you get Caesar together, then you can get Alexander the Great together. When you get Alexander the Great together, you can get Napoleon Bonaparte. When you get Napoleon together, you can get Hitler together. If you get Hitler together, you can get George Washington together. When you get George Washington together, you can get Lyndon B. Johnson together. When you get Lyndon together, you can get Ronald Reagan together. When you get Ronald Reagan together, you can get Bush 1 and Bush 2 together. When you get him together, you can get Clinton together. When you get Clinton together, Barack Obama don't fall, do fall. And then when you get Barack together, of course we can get that fool together in the White House right now. Because in God's economy, he can do what he want to do. And instead of y'all wanting him to get impeached, how about you ask God touch his heart?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Instead of you running around concerned about his policy and practice, how about you pray a little bit more? Because it don't matter who's in the White House, who's in your house. How you gonna tell Donald Trump how to run the White House and your White House running the street? How you gonna tell Donald Trump what to do with his money when you ain't doing what God told you to do with your money? How you gonna tell Donald Trump how to talk to folk when you ain't doing what God told you to do? And in order for God to fix and reform white supremacy, there must be somebody that he used as the face of it. There's never been reformation without some reconstruction and repentance. And we too worried about stuff that God ain't even concerned about. and the people that you rode with who hating on you in the first place. Most of y'all haters in your house. Y'all sleep with haters. You feed haters. They eat your food and drink your wine. They haters. They haters, Miss Stephanie. Most of them in your family. Because you know they're haters because they don't talk about what you're doing there. They talk about what you used to be. They haters because they don't buy a house from you, but they go buy from somebody else.
Wow.
Huh? Huh? And they know Donovan over there. They don't go to your church. They go put their money in other people's churches because really they haters.
Ouch. Ouch.
And you roll with them. You call them on the phone and talk to them.
Yeah.
Huh? You walk around with them. You pay for their meals. They don't pay for yours. I don't eat with people who ain't never paid for me. The reason why me and House don't agree on nothing, but the reason why I roll with him, he done bought me lunch before. Beware of watching God's stuff. When God say to whom much is given, much is required, you are required to handle God's stuff the way God tells you to. It's a requirement, Big Sam, that we handle God's stuff. And let me say this, and this is it. We're going to pray, we're going to go home. The reason why God hasn't released the blessing because some of y'all ain't in the right places.
Yeah.
When God told me that, I fell out. He said, even you preach. I didn't tell you not to go preach and send my message to churches. You don't make decisions that I didn't tell you to make. So guess what, y'all? I'm sorry, but we're getting ready to go on tour. Because God says, I don't make decisions that he didn't tell me not to make. And God said, when you fall in line, when you do it, when you submit and be obedient, when you stop trying to make a decision, then I'm going to do. God said, number one, I want you to do a Bible study. God said, number two, I want you to go back to Natchez. And number three, I want you to support my brothers. Last week, you can turn that off, Angela, because I'm my cousin.